My name is Jonathan Parks, and welcome to Jonathan's Nature Crafts. I must inform you that I do not live in this house by myself, but live here with other people. Sometimes other members of the household may have to walk through areas where I might be recording with other family members on the phone. If you hear any noise like that, please feel free to disregard. We are doing our best to get noise canceling equipment, which may at least keep you from hearing exactly what is being said. Thank you for considering. Okay, so it's just a little time when I think we're going to probably do the last little part to these Santas, and this might at least probably end the carving video so much, and we'll hopefully be back on here to do a short little finale where I will show how I have carved the faces after they are already done. But here's what I've come down to showing for this little moment. You see how I've kind of chipped off a little area in between the top of the two ruffles of the sleeves? That's kind of where we're going to be right now as we take care of some little things like that. I say that there's little strange thoughts coming around here. Do want to mention that in a little bit I feel like I got pretty rested, and I tell y'all, after my show lasted until about 2 yesterday, but some of us had to take down about 1:30 because we'd been out in the heat and not been getting much crowd or many shoppers. So I'd say it took me a while to get home. Maybe got home probably about maybe 3:30 or 3 o'clock or so, probably around 4 maybe, and I came home and went right to sleep at whatever time in the afternoon I got home, and probably slept for the first time until about 3:30 this morning, and then probably laid back down, got back to sleep about 4, and would say I probably woke back up maybe around 6 o'clock, 6:30, something like that, and kind of, just showered up, kind of did a few things. Gotta have a show to get ready for. I mean, I'm kind of thinking different on my words. Here's how the cuffs have turned out once we got them done. But what I'm trying to say is that I have a Zumba class at the Y to attend in a little bit. I will be happy to make it down there and get to that, and feel like today I rested so much through the evening that I feel good enough to make it down to that. I mean, I'd say I may not make it to my great aunt's visitation and funeral, but the way she always was, she would always be the first to understand. So that's kind of how it is with her. And like she always said when she was alive, even about anybody else who passed away, they would have always said that if you couldn't attend their funeral or whatever, they'd be okay, because the fact that you told them that you loved them while they were still alive was really all that mattered to them. That was kind of how she spoke to me about my great uncle, which was my grandmother's brother and her husband, because that was what I did right before he died. Of course, I did attend his funeral, and because I had to go to work after the funeral, I didn't get to go to the cemetery to attend the graveside part of the service after. But it did just so happen that, like she said, while he was still alive, just about a week or so before his death, I came by there just to shake his hand and tell him that I loved him. So she kind of said that, the fact we do that while he's alive is was really all that mattered. And so it's like that's kind of what people also say, is that you don't come to their graveside to visit them. They say if you have anything you want to say to them, you tell them while they're alive. They want to hear it while they're alive. Because, once they're passed on, it's just a different story. They're not there to care. But I always just want to say that sometimes this makes me think about old Franklin Graham. Franklin Graham once wrote in his book, Rebel with a Cause, wrote a chapter called A Grandfather's Prayer. He talked about his maternal grandfather in that passage, his mom's dad, and how he came to visit him when he was in college, but he always stayed away from his grandfather because his grandfather was a disciplinarian and he was afraid of him. And he talked about how that now that his grandfather was passed, he sometimes regrets that, but knows he's in heaven and knows that in heaven he'll get to spend a lot of time with him. But he did kind of make mention of how it was when his grandfather's concordance was handed down to him. And the concordance of his grandfather's had a little note in it that said, "Pray for Franklin's education." So he knew his grandfather was praying for his education all along. To those of you who don't know, Franklin Graham is Billy Graham's son. He's an evangelist himself who continues to carry out his father's ministry. And it's almost like what I saw not too long ago, where Franklin Graham was up speaking about that statue of Billy Graham that was uncovered at the Capitol Rotunda here in the United States. He got up and said that his father would not be comfortable with that statue there because, he always just wanted people to remember Jesus rather than him. So, but I tell you one thing for sure is that it's one of those things I've prayed about sometimes and felt like a certain angel that sometimes speaks to me and says, "Jonathan, the Lord wanted that statue there." So you see, it's like there's different ways God has of using different ones of us. And, I'd say Billy Graham would have preferred to have been a common man. He would have preferred to have been a common pastor of a church who didn't get a lot of attention, but even before that, he would have rather not preached. He didn't even want to preach either, but, this was all things God called him to do. And I even heard my pastor once say that he failed 3 times as a pastor before he became the evangelist he became. So, you see, it's like lots of times God has different plans for us than we have for ourselves, and he never wanted to be a celebrity of a preacher, but that was what God chose for him. And we know that sometimes the names that go out there, they say a lot, they mean a lot. There's been times in my life, sometimes, I've thought at times I could be famous if I tried to be, but, it kind of can get a little hard to do sometimes, And in my life, I've tried to leave people with a lot of sentiments and things, and I'd say that attention doesn't really go that well because sometimes, just sometimes, people have to know you to understand you, and sometimes I'd say when people don't understand you well, things don't go their best way. But I say of all things that there's probably going to be those who, as I've always heard and said, if they're meant to be in your life, they will come around. What's meant to be will always find a way. Even though there may be times in life when you might have to change your directions or go in a different direction than you're used to or go a different way than you used to. The fact of the matter is, people might miss you here and there. They might wonder where you've been, but you kind of come to realize that if they're meant to be in your life, they will find a way. Sometimes I like to say that there's those who, you think about those whose lives you probably would like to be in, and you kind of get away from them for a while, but sometimes, people kind of get their own busy schedules, and our schedules get different, and the directions God chooses for us get a little bit different. So he calls us all to go in separate ways. And as always, like what Michael W. Smith sang about, sometimes the road he chose for one of us is not the road he chose for another of us, and God will bring us back around again. We know that even on earth, we might have our separate ways that we go, but we also know that in heaven we're all going to be reunited again. All of God's children, that is. And heaven's going to be open to us, and it's all going to go a long way, and we're going to see Jesus in his glory, and we're all going to be together with the Lord Jesus himself. It's like that old hymn goes, shall we gather at the river that flows from the throne of God? It's just kind of like how when it comes down to it, and when the roll is called up, yonder will be there. Like all those old hymns, the way they speak to us and way they tell us about all the promises of God that come at a certain point. Got one last Santa to do with these little ruffles we have here to make out, and kind of with just a little gesturing we go, kind of make it so we just kind of work a little ways to make little Santa Claus have his own good personal little ways to us. I say, kind of like, oh, how I say, so many things in life, they're not triggering me right now. I mean, I'm not under the same treatment that I ever was, and feel like I get to be in a better world with better people now, and I say, there's just not too awful much to have to deal with in life these days. And I know one thing for sure, there certainly is a lot of stuff with the news and politics that kind of gets a little strange, and and what's kind of triggering people right now is the fact that our former president out at a rally yesterday was shot, and that it kind of injured his ear a little bit. But I say for all things, we just don't know how things are going to go for the future of America. There's just a lot going on right now because we're just having things that as a country we may have never experienced before, and why things are going so much different, we just don't always know. But I'd just like to mention that sometimes I like to just stay away from politics, because it's just kind of an awful way to be and way to go. And I didn't really hear about all this stuff yesterday because I was either out all day or asleep all day, and I just turn on my social media and see my friends talking about it today, so that's how I know. And I'd just like to say that this will be the final carving video for these little Alpine St. Nicholases. We'll be doing another video soon where we will be demonstrating, where I will be showing everything else after it's already carved out, as far as how all the faces and eyes go, because that's a work in itself, has to be done solo without the distraction of the cameras and things. So thank you all very much for watching. I wish you all the best. Take care, and I just want to say, always, always, always keep in touch. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I hope to see you in the next video. Stay tuned.